For a really long time, people and mages coincided in harmony. Anyway, the head of the mages Mordred concludes he needs more and sends his military to go after the realm of Camelot. Many mages together with monster war monsters send off an extremely forceful assault, and regardless of how hard they battle, Camelot's protections aren't sufficient. Prince Vortigern, who appears to feel tipsy for being near enchantment, tells his sibling King Uther that they ought to give up, yet Uther denies. With his amazing sword Excalibur close by, he meets eye to eye with Mordred. Furthermore, the force of the sword is enough for Uther to overcome his adversary. Afterward, Uther and his committee have a gathering about how they ought to manage the mages. Sir Bedivere and Sir William remind Uther that the mages aren't terrible individuals. Mordred had just been an awful pioneer and presently he's gone. All things considered, it was Mage Merlin who gave Uther the blade, and Vortigern himself considered with the mages a couple. Quite a while back Uther sees their point and consents to drop a wide range of hostility against the mages, which Vortigern doesn't support. Around midnight, Vortigern advises his men to prepare what's more, takes his significant other to a mystery underground room in the palace to forfeit her to the Channel Witches in return for power. As Vortigern's officers start assuming control over the palace, Uther races to awaken his better half and his child Arthur to get away from through the docks. Anyway, a Devil Knight finds them and kills the couple while the child gets away from on a boat that the waterway takes as far as possible to Londinium. The boat is found by Lucy and her kindred call young ladies, so little Arthur experiences childhood in a risque house believing he's the jerk child of one of the functioning women. While Vortigern dominates the lofty position, Arthur is tormented by different children in the area. Subsequently he asks trainer George showed him how to battle. Arthur starts fostering his road smarts and protects the call young ladies from forceful clients while engaging with the nearby crime location and saving the cash he makes in a mystery spot on the wall. When he turns into a grown-up, Arthur is the neighborhood's kingpin. Yet he actually experiences bad dreams that show him the evil presence Knight and the perishing lady on the docks. In the interim, Vortigern rules over the realm savagely and puts the greater part of his assets into building a monster tower. One morning, he finds all the water encompassing the palace has retreated and this has uncovered the area of Excalibur, which is stuck on a stone. The troopers are battling about it, however no one is by all accounts ready to take it out. Stressed over the ramifications, Vortigern visits the Canal Witches again to remind them he forfeited a friend or family member to get power and that there ought not be deterrents. The witches make sense of that equilibrium is unavoidable. Assuming one side of force develops, so should the other. If he has any desire to stop the sword, he should track down Arthur. What's more, finish him. Back to Arthur, he amazes Lucy with some cash he took from the last man that hit her. Lucy's intrigued on the grounds that man had been a Viking, and his kin can be very risky. At that second, Jack and a lot of imperial gatekeepers appear at the indelicate house searching for a dissident that went after the ruler's flatboat. Arthur seriously don't really like the Lord, however he would rather not put his dearest women in harm's way, so when he finds William concealing in the risque house, he hands him over to the watchman. Then Jack requests a confidential gathering with Arthur and his cherished companions Tristan and Backlack, needing to know what's happening. Arthur makes sense of he took cash from the Vikings in light of the fact that they meddled with Lucy and George, and he imagines his group didn't really utilize viciousness. Jack too gets some information about the spray painting the local children have been covering all uptown declaring the return of the conceived lord. However, Backlack guarantees he's as of now told his child Blue he should stop. Clearly Jack doesn't trust a solitary word and requests that Arthur be more cautious in light of the fact that the Vikings are under the security of the Lord. A couple of days after the fact, Vortigern keeps an eye wary Mercia about the sword, yet sadly no one in the regal armed force has had the option to recover it. Mercia is concerned since each day the radicals get more grounded and individuals disdain Vortigern to an ever-increasing extent. Vortigern asks Maggie, a woman of the ruler's court, about the assessment of his kin, not knowing Maggie subtly works with the obstruction and falsehoods when she lets him know individuals love their lord. Fulfilled by this, Vortigern orders Mercia to focus on completing the pinnacle. Around midnight, Arthur is awakened by his companions, who caution him the illustrious gatekeepers are coming for him. Arthur attempts to get away, however the gatekeepers catch him in the city and return him to Camelot. At the harbor, there's an enormous line for the test, so Arthur slices in to abstain from seriously pausing. As soon as Arthur snatches the blade with two hands, the whole kingdom starts shaking and the runes on the sword gleams. Amazingly, Arthur removes the sword from the stone, yet the power overpowers him such a lot of Eddie drops. Afterward, Arthur awakens in a cell with Vortigern. The Lord makes sense of that the blade demonstrates Arthur is Uther's child. However, Arthur denies it. It is only a to say call a young lady's jerk that needs nothing. Anyway, Vortigern has proactively sent his men to explore the Ribbled house and found Arthur's secret cache, and that implies he has aspiration. What's more, he's a danger to Vortigern's privileged position. In the meantime, in the revolutionaries' hideaway, Rubio brings a mage to see Bedivere. This mage has been sent by Merlin to be Arthur's aide. However, she really wants Bedivere's assistance to get to the palace. Minutes after the fact, Individuals in Camelot assemble around the palace to see the conceived ruler. Vortigern needs to utilize this opportunity to help their regard through dread, and Arthur must cooperate, on the off chance that he doesn't give the control over to Vortigern. Then, at that point, his watchman will kill Lucy. At the point when they show up before General Society, Arthur is allowed the opportunity to snatch Excalibur and shield himself. Yet Arthur turns it down to safeguard his functioning young ladies. Arthur's known as a disruptor of harmony, and he will bite the dust for the realm. At the point when the gatekeepers are going to kill Arthur, the mage sends a falcon to stop the watchman and makes every one of the ponies and canines go off the deep end. The group starts taking off and the watchmen focus on safeguarding the ruler, giving Bedivere and the rebels the opportunity to save Arthur and recover Excalibur. As the functioning young ladies take the risk to get away, Arthur takes off with the agitators and the mage while battling the watchmen in the tumult. 2 dissidents are killed all the while. However, this permits the gathering to move away securely by bouncing into a waterway. In the long run they arrive at the revolutionaries' refuge, where Arthur is astonished. William got away from capture and is here as well. Bedivere and William make sense of that Arthur's area has been burnt and he can't return. They additionally need to see how he can manage the sword. Arthur imagines he would rather not battle before he starts to effectively thump a few radicals. At the point when it's William's turn, Arthur gets Excalibur with 2 hands and his brain loads up with dreams, making him pass out once more. Hours after the fact, Arthur is awakened by the standard bad dreams on the grounds that the mage is doing accustomed to grasp the blade. This time the horrible shows his more youthful self giving the blade to Uther, which makes sense of the scars he's constantly had on his hands. The mage lets him know he's opposing the blade and Arthur denies it, saying he isn't the amazing ruler they need. Anyway, he acknowledges to give this an opportunity when the mage brings up she can dispose of the bad dreams. Subsequently, the mage requests that Bedivere take Arthur to the Dark Lands. Arthur is dropped at an island, where the mage lets him know he should arrive at the pinnacle and contact the special raised area stone with the sword. Arthur isn't excessively stressed in light of the fact that he thinks it'll be very much like setting up camp. Yet all the same, after he's let be, he discovers that the island is brimming with frightening animals. This powers him to utilize the sword more to shield himself, killing any beast that holds him up. Following a couple of long stretches of crude endurance, Arthur arrives at the highest point of an old pinnacle and puts the sword on the raised area stone, which promptly sparkles and frightens all monsters off. The Enchanted assumes control over Arthur's psyche and shows him the full memory of the night his family passed on. The Devil Knight killed the Sovereign, so Uther pursued the knight with Excalibur. During the battle, Uther dropped his blade and little Arthur given it back before his dad advised him to run. Little Arthur hopped on the boat and let the stream guide him as he shut his eyes not to observe his dad's passing. Excalibur fell on the back of Uther's body, changing him into the stone that brought the blade down into the water. The evil presence knight removed his mysterious cover and uncovered his personality to be Vortigern, who arranged this entirety thing deliberately. After the vision, Arthur drops and he should be protected by Bedivere and the mage. Arthur understands that the island tower is equivalent to the one Vortigern is working in Camelot. Also, the mage makes sense of Vortigern will become as strong as Mordred when he completes it. That is the reason the sword showed up at this point. Bedivere calls attention to it was Vortigern who began the conflict against the mages in any case. He made an arrangement that he would impart capacity to Mordred assuming he killed Uther. Mordred acknowledged, killed the mage lord, and took the regal staff to the pinnacle to open the dull powers. Anyway, Merlin took the staff later and made Excalibur with it, utilizing it to annihilate the pinnacle. Then, at that point, he gave Excalibur to the woman of the lake, who bound it to Uther's bloodline. At the point when they return to the hideaway, Arthur's companions are sitting waiting for him. What's more, they affirm their area has been torched by Jack and Mercia while looking for him. They figured out how to save the functioning young ladies and a couple of companions, yet a great many people took off. This makes Arthur enraged and he concludes he'll kill Vortigern as retribution. Subsequently, Arthur presents his companions to the radicals and they start making an arrangement. William needs to meet with the noblemen from the main families in the realm to request their help, yet Arthur denies. He focuses out those luxurious rulers could never acknowledge him as a pioneer for being an unfortunate person with no schooling. What's more, the dissidents should be the ones in control. Rather, Arthur proposes to draw Vortigern out of the palace and make him come to Londinium by harming what he thinks often about the most, the pinnacle. They start by sinking the canal boats conveying the stock of stone and obstructing the waterway. Then they utilize William's data on the ruler's transportation courses to save every one of the children that are being utilized as slaves. One of the functioning women knows the man that provisions liquor to Vortigern's #1 castle, so they use it to explode the premises. This powers Vortigern to make an arrangement with the Vikings, regardless of whether it implies tolerating obscure terms. Prior to leaving, the Vikings show stress over Vortigern losing his power since they additionally heard reports about the conceived lord. Frantic to recover control, Vortigern requires a gathering with all the nobles in Londinium. Then, at that point, he goes to the ability to start expanding his powers. Minutes after the fact, Maggie shows up at the refuge and educates everybody regarding Vortigern's approaching gathering, moving the renegades to make an arrangement to kill Vortigern when he visits Londinium. They need a protected structure to shoot from, so William demonstrates he can kill anybody with his bow from 175 yards. At the point when the day comes, Arthur watches the Lord show up in a carriage and he can't resist the urge to think this is excessively simple. It turns out this is every one of the Asnare, and Vortigern is stowing away with Maggie in a boat since he realizes she is keeping an eye on him and utilizing her to set this up. Arthur can see the Lord on the road as an entertainer. Be that as it may, William chooses to shoot at any rate to kill Mercia. The gatekeepers quickly raise the caution and start scanning the town for the revolutionaries. Arthur's gathering attempts to conceal in the group, yet the gatekeepers find them and a furious fight starts, during which Backlack gets injured. He tells them to go on without him, and the gathering keeps on battling through the roads, making Rubio get hurt too. Rubio stays behind too to occupy the watchman while the gathering slips into George's school since he has a mystery burrow they can use to get away. Anyway, everybody here won't be running defeatists and they stay to battle. The watchmen burst in and a tremendous fight starts, during which the mage attempts to help by instructing her birds. Her arrangement doesn't work and she gets caught, which drives Arthur so mad that he gets Excalibur with 2 hands and loses the whole armed force in a matter of seconds. This exhibition of force is seen by the neighbors through their windows. A while later the revolutionaries stow away in a safe house and choose to hold on until dim for backbeat up. In the city, individuals are beginning to revolt on the grounds that the tale of Arthur's powers is spreading. Yet Arthur still doesn't have any desire to lead. Hours after the fact, Blue carries Backlack to the safe house. Yet Backlack knows he's perishing and advises Arthur to leave without him. Arthur hauls Blue away just before Vortigern shows up with his gatekeepers, who found the safe house when they chased after the youngster. Backlack claims to not know anything. Yet the cross-examination is intruded on by Blue, who has returned in light of the fact that he won't leave his dad. Detecting the risk, Blue imagines he's simply the cleaner and that he has barely any insight into Backlack. Vortigern doesn't trust him and scales Backlack's ear as a test, making Blue beginning shouting. Arthur returns and snatches a watchman as a danger, so Vortigern answers by killing Backlack. This interruption permits Arthur to get Blue and run to the boats. Presently the radicals can at last escape securely. A short time later Vortigern orders his gatekeepers to catch or kill any individual that is attempting to rebel in the city. At the point when they return to the hideaway, Arthur ponders every one of the lives that were lost only for him. So he chooses to toss the blade into the lake and take off. The blade is tracked down by the woman of the lake, and when Arthur falls in the mud, the woman snatches him to bring him into her nest and show him how Vortigern will respond if he isn't halted. Arthur watches a dream of Camelot totally in ruins under Vortigern's brutality. Lastly acknowledges the sword. Prior to giving up, the woman advises him that Vortigern should be battled in the pinnacle and that Arthur should trust the mage. At the point when the revolutionaries track down Arthur, he's thundering with the force of the sparkling blade. In the interim Vortigern catches Rubio and harms him until he surrenders data. Minutes after the fact, Arthur discovers that mobs are spreading everywhere the country in his name. Arthur reports he's prepared to simply jump in and assume control over the palace, so the dissidents return to the hideaway to prepare. Tragically they find a slaughter hanging tight for themselves and an illustrious gatekeeper with a message from Vortigern. Arthur should go to the palace before dull, or they'll kill Blue and the mage. The one that goes to the palace is Bedivere in light of the fact that he needs to actually look at it's genuine the prisoners are alive. Vortigern acknowledges to trade Excalibur for the mage and to sit tight for Arthur until morning. Once the mage reunites with the radicals, she chooses now as the ideal time to stir what's inside Arthur. She brings a snake that chomps Arthur's neck, and its toxic substance makes him ready to see every one of the supernatural animals that conceal in nature. The mage additionally guarantees this toxin will secure him later. A couple of hours after the fact, Arthur shows up at the palace while the mage makes her bird drop a snake inside. Arthur is taken to see the Lord. However, when Vortigern's going to kill his nephew, he sees the snake on a point of support. Vortigern kills the snake and inadvertently stalls the sword out in the stone, so presently he can't take it out. At that point, the mage sends a monster snake into the palace, and the monster kills every one of the watchmen while Arthur recovers Excalibur. In the roads, the revolutionaries salvage every one of the detainees to move them to restart the uproars. Vortigern needs more power, and the witches remind him there's a cost for it. Seeing no other decision, Vortigern looks for his little girl and kills her as he cries in distress. Then, at that point, he takes the body to the witches and once more turns into the Devil Knight. Outside, Arthur fights any watchman that holds him up and without any problem routs them because of the force of his sword. The watchmen are terrified to the point that they drop their weapons to allow him to pass. While the dissidents show up to assume control over the palace, Arthur enters the pinnacle. Also, Excalibur responds to the enchanted there. Arthur is magically transported to the highest point of the pinnacle where Vortigern is pausing, and a furious fight starts. On account of his penance, Vortigern is very strong furthermore, pounds Arthur in minutes. At the point when Vortigern reports the blade is his now, the toxic substance kicks in and causes Arthur to have one final vision. This time Arthur doesn't shut his eyes when Uther passes on and gets the sword before it sinks into his dad's body. Uther tells Arthur the sword is furthermore. Arthur awakens, finding Excalibur sparkling with power. Arthur quickly snatches furthermore, battles Vortigern again with much better control of the sword's powers. Vortigern is hit again and Arthur at long last figures out how to kill him as he brings up he became what his identity is thanks to Vortigern sent him to the roads in any case. To come to his meaningful conclusion more unexpected, Arthur even kisses Vortigern's hand. Then he actuates Excalibur's wizardry to make the whole pinnacle disintegrate. The following day, the realm expresses farewell to every one of the lives lost during the conflict. Subsequently, Arthur shows his group the round table he's picked for their gatherings and requests that Bedivere knight his companions. Ultimately, William himself knights Arthur, making him the authority lord. In a little while, the Vikings appear at request their piece of the arrangement. Compromising with war in the event that they don't get what they need, Arthur isn't scared and helps them to remember his power, making the Vikings bow what's more, acknowledge him as the new ruler of Britain and a partner. By the day's end, Bedivere crowns Arthur before a gigantic group, and Arthur raises his blade as he commits to safeguard his kin. The end. If you like this story, please subscribe to the channel and like it to motivate me to bring you more stories like this.